We thought what we had was a good marriage until we really realized that the foundation that we thought we had was not there. It wasn't going to be about what I did, but about what God does. For me, it was letting go, surrendering, praying, right? And just taking the next step, because that's all I had. It was just like, just take this next step.
Call it my road to Damascus experience. It was this moment of intense presence, and it was undeniably him. I was running from him. It was just put on me, and I pulled over the side of the road, and it was this, he was just saying, like, here's your fork in the road. You can keep living the life you're living, or you can come back to me.
God intended sex and sexuality to be sacred gifts, but what about those of us who've experienced more sexual pain than celebration? My name is Matt Klein, and I'm your host. Welcome to the Exposed Life Show, where we explore God's true design for sexuality, bring darkness to light, and discover Jesus at the center of it all. Let's go. And Lisa, I love having you guys on. Love chatting with you guys. It's been maybe a couple years since we did a podcast, but I remember on Pure Victory podcast, you were our first repeat guest. So here we are. We got to get you on this too.
So crazy.
You're one of our favorite people. We recommend you still all the time, just so you know. So we're honored to do anything with you. We always tell you, like, you always give us like all the things that we need to do. And we're always like, yes, Matt, we are in it. We're on board. And then next time we talk, you're like, so what else? And we're like, still nothing. Still the same thing, Matt. We need to get going.
But what you guys do works. So you just keep doing it, and you're changing lives. And that's why I send people to you guys all the time too. So it's all good. But what are you guys about? So we're talking about creating resources, doing what you do, and it works. But what do you do?
I let Brad go first.
I'm going first. Well, the podcast, that's the free resource that we offer. And I don't know how many episodes we have now.
A lot. We're like, I think 188 episodes at this point, which is
lots of free resources with that. Right. And then we do a weekend reboot, a marriage reboot. And it's a great time. People travel here to where we're at. And we just spend a weekend with them. And it's very structured. It's not just hanging out for the weekend. We spend the weekend with them and go through a bunch of stuff. And then also we've been speaking a lot more. Last year, we got to travel around the country and speak. Mm-hmm. And so that's where our heart is too. Just reaching people and
sharing hope.
Going to different churches, different events, whatever it may be.
We do marriage weekends, marriage events, helping couples with betrayal, or what does that look like?
No, well, our weekend intensives that are one-on-one with couples it really is for any marriage. Typically, just because of our own story, it usually involves a couple that has gone through some kind of crisis in their marriage, some kind of betrayal of trust. But we've done a reboot for couples in kind of all stages and ranges of reboots. And it's just meant to help you really create a plan to get you where you ultimately want to go. A lot of times people don't even know where that is. So it's helping them develop and see what that is, and then start taking those steps towards it. We are wanting to do even a group retreat. It's been on our mind, and the Lord's put it on our heart, but we still have not fully committed to dates yet. So eventually we'll do that.
It's got to be on the heart before the dates are there. So I know that'll happen. That'll be awesome. You definitely need to let me know when you're doing that.
You need to have Matt come and be a part of it.
Well, yeah, I can always learn. So I'll come and learn from you guys. Hey, let's let people in on your story a little bit. Why do you, obviously you mentioned your story, Lisa. So you have a history. There was infidelity in your marriage, reconciliation, pretty cool story, how that came back how you guys came back together. But can you just share it a little bit? Whoever wants to go first on what you guys have been through.
I'll give my brief 30 seconds and then hand it over to Brad. Mm-hmm. So we were married for 10 years, and we like to always let people know that in that 10 years, we had what we considered and other people considered to be a good marriage. We were doing the things that you're supposed to do, right, to have a good marriage, kind of checking the boxes. We went to church. We had 3 kids at this point. We were we weren't really dating or things like that, but we felt like that season of our life we didn't pay attention to that kind of intentionality. And so, we thought what we had was a good marriage until we really realized that the foundation that we thought we had was not there. And that's when I handed over to Brad and let him share all the good stuff. Or bad
stuff. It's not good stuff at all. I mean, I would say that we had a foundation.
Yes.
It wasn't like
cracks,
we weren't.
I would say.
Yeah. But no, 10 years into our marriage, and I was traveling a lot for work. And I wasn't, I grew up in church. Right. And I mean, literally sleeping on the pew at times, I've always been in church. And I guess I just rode the coattails of my parents and uncles and grandparents' faith. And I never really had my own, relationship with Christ. I mean, I did, but it wasn't this rooted, grounded relationship. And what ends up happening if you don't have that is, it doesn't have to be as extreme as my story, but when those storms come and temptation comes and all that, you're not fully rooted and grounded, then you're going to fall. Yeah. Right. And it's inevitable. So that's what happened to me. I started compromising things that I held true. I just started compromising a little bit here, a little bit there. And as that grew, it just full blown into like physical infidelity. I say that very intentionally because infidelity started way before it was this physical aspect of an actual other human being, right? Because as I was compromising, I started to get into pornography and just started going that route. And then I was justifying everything I was doing because I was using twisted scripture to justify what I was doing and basically saying like, well, if this is how I'm going to be, then I've already done it in my heart. So I'm just going to do it here. And just this whole horribly skewed view of what Christ has for us. Right. Yeah. And those specific scriptures, right. Just a horrible view of it, but that's how the enemy works. Right. I didn't know enough because I wasn't rooted and grounded in the word. And so when these were happening, I just was like, oh, well, this is where I'm at. Right. I can't do anything else. And so as that progressed, I just was living this double life. It's weird to talk about it right now because I can't understand how I saw that was okay. And then Lisa found out at some point, right? And this is clearly a condensed story, right? But Lisa found out at some point, and then I wasn't living at home anymore. And I was just bumming couches off of friends that lived like I wanted to live.
Was that your choice? Like, did you want to leave, or did Lisa say, okay, time's up?
Once she found out, that was it. I was like, okay, I can never come back from this, right? And whether it was ingrained in me in church or whatever it was like, this is the ultimate betrayal. This is the passage in the Bible again that says like, Jesus, this is when you can get a divorce, all these things that were going in my mind. And so for me, it was like, well, our marriage is over. So when she did find out, I mean, yeah, I didn't fight back at all.
There was a lot of little details. It's always funny because when we share our story, there's like portions that Brad just does not remember. And as a woman that you're just like, I can remember every single detail. That can be a huge detriment in healing, by the way.
Yeah.
But during that time, I did have the Lord show me really distinctly this love that he had for Brad in kind of just a powerful way. And it did give me hope. And I was really shocked by that because of the fact that in my own mind, if I ever faced something like this, which I never thought I would, I was pretty like, okay, we'd be done. Like there is no other chance for you after that. Right. But I did feel like God just had this softening in my spirit and really allowed me to see this glimpse of the love that he had for Brad. And so even though I did extend opportunity for reconciliation, there was no desire for it at that stage of the game. And so I know for Brad, he was just like, I confessed and you kicked me out. But there was a lot of things that happened in between then.
I mean, I wasn't trying to dumb it down, but I looked at it as a view of we're done.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I can't come back from this. This is, all the aspects of what goes through your head with that. I mean, and it wasn't a quick thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't that I was following God and all of a sudden I woke up one day and I'm like, all right, this is the day that I'm going to walk out on my family and do all these things. It was the small compromises I made that made it the ultimate, physical side of it wasn't much of a step at all. So it was constantly going in this direction that I shouldn't have been going, and just compromising all of my beliefs, and then surrounding myself with people that were living that same life, right? That were single dudes just living it up, right? Just doing this normal party stuff. And so that was what I just was like, okay, well, this is my life now, and my kids will be fine. My wife will be fine. Like all these lies, and definitely during this whole time, like I've dealt with insecurities my whole life. I still battle insecurities, and that people ask me like, why'd you do this? What's your why? And I've always hated that question, because I've talked to other men and they've tried to find that why. Like, well, what was it? What was the one singular thing that said, hey, this is what you're going to do? And it wasn't a singular thing for me, but during the process of me compromising, I was definitely being fed, like, dealing with my insecurities, I was being fed the opposite, right? But not in a way that God would feed you, not in a way that you could have victory over your insecurities. It was more of just more lies, right? So I didn't feel good enough, attractive enough, whatever it was. And then all of a sudden I see other women looking at me, coming up to me, talking to me, whatever, all these aspects of like, well, maybe I am good enough. Maybe I am these things, but it was just a falsehood. It was just lies. And so my insecurities never got fixed during that time. It was just, I was feeding more and more, trying to shove them down, thinking that everything would be good. And so while that was going on, and this happened this wasn't years, right? This happened
about a 9-10 month
about a 9-10 month process. That is just because of God, honestly, because if she didn't find out, which God always reveals the truth, if she didn't find out, I would have been continuing to live this weird life, and who knows how long this would have gone on. So I do feel that is definitely like God intervening.
Was it the affair was 9-10 months, or are you guys living apart? 9-10
we were
months?
living apart for about 9-10 months.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a decent amount of time where you might think like the marriage is over.
Absolutely.
We started the divorce process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I started the divorce process, actually.
Can you take us through that? What did that look like, and how did you see the Lord at work through the divorce process?
I feel like the Lord has a really unique way of dealing with me that requires me to literally have him wrench each finger off of a situation at a time. And looking back, I can see, I was really desperate to save my marriage and not wanting my kids to grow up in a divorced home. I had dreams that were really being shattered that I didn't even know I had. Right. And that's just kind of an interesting thing to navigate through when you are just like, well, there's this level of this thing is secure in my life. And when that secure thing is removed, all of a sudden you realize like, oh, like I've lost this thing I didn't even realize I wanted. And so God like ripped my fingers off one at a time. And I really see his grace in that now, because I did not want to file for divorce. But I really felt like God was having me take steps I didn't want to take and learn to trust him in that. And so even in that process, I don't even know if Brad remembers this, but I repeatedly said to him, like, you have the ability to stop this, right? And I just prayed, like, God, as we walk through this, that it would be something that he would see clearly the path that he was choosing. That's just what I just kept praying, like, God, let him see, right? As we divided holidays with our kids, right? As we divided finances and the implications, the consequences, right, of all of it being laid out on paper in black and white, and just needing our signatures, right, to just divide your life. Like everything that we had built was just like gone through, right, and divided as to who got what and when and where, down to our kids. And I mean, that is, for those that have gone through divorce, like it is such a gut-wrenching process to heal from. And definitely gave me the opportunity to see just the direction that we were headed and the pain that's involved in it. And so God taught me a lot about trusting him and surrendering again and again and again and again, because I really think ultimately it was a lot of lessons for me to learn that it wasn't going to be about what I did, but about what God does. And that's what he does, right? Like I couldn't take any credit for really what God was going to do. And I'm sure Brad will share in a minute in his life. Like for me, it was letting go, surrendering, praying, right? And just taking the next step, because that's all I had. It was just like, just take this next step. And that kind of made me mad too, because I really wanted some level of knowing when I took those steps, right? Like, okay, well, and what's going to happen here next year, Lord, right? Like, the Lord really let me be so real and honest with him. And I'm so thankful for that, because he met me in that rawness, of just the whys, the questions, all of it, all the pain. He just met me there. And I'm so grateful for it.
We need him. We talk about Jesus-centered sexuality, and it's like sex, sexuality, everything, it points to Jesus. But on the betrayed side, it's actually the same thing.
It is.
It all has to point to Jesus. And like Brad, you referenced Matthew 5:27, 28.
Yeah.
Like adultery, committing lust is adultery in the heart. But like on the same, or on the other side of the coin, I guess, when we see that that's actually adultery against Jesus, which is what it is, that's what Jesus is talking about. It's adultery against the covenant with God. Then we see God's restorative nature at work. That even though we commit adultery against him and lust after his creation, Romans 1 says after the created being, not after him. Man, like we see him chasing us and forgiving and pursuing us. And he was instilling his character into you, Lisa, in that time, and making you more like Christ. I'm sure the situation made you maybe less like Christ sometimes, but
absolutely, both sides.
Right? But like, how cool is that when Jesus is at the center of everything, it's not just the one who committed the offense that he works on. It's like, no, both parties have to have Jesus at the center of the whole thing.
I felt like that was very unfair, actually.
It is. Like, logically, it is, isn't it?
I'm like, work on him. Like, don't worry about me. Like, just work on him. And I would have those kind of discussions with the Lord. But he was so faithful, who just kind of continually draw me back, and point out things that I hadn't dealt with for the 10 years of our marriage, right? God pointed out things to me and really brought me to a place that I knew I had to heal regardless of the outcome of our marriage. And I think that is what the Lord brought me through during that season, was like, well, you have to heal, right? And a lot of that had nothing to do with Brad, and which is also so unfair. Because that's just part of it, right? Is like, I had to recognize the woman that I wanted to be on the other side of whatever was going to be either a marriage or not our marriage. Like, I had to wrestle that out. And God really taught me a lot during that time when I was just, like I said, at his feet, man. It was raw. Now back to you.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you were talking about obedience, right? And surrender. And I'm just picturing like, you mentioned fingers. I'm picturing like a pinky holding on. It's like that last little bit of surrender, right? And it's like, he wants us to get there, but then when we do, he moves on the other person or on a situation. And I was just dwelling on that in my own life yesterday, and something I'm like, if I want something to happen, or if I want the Lord to move, am I at the place of full surrender and full obedience? And like, no is the answer right now. I'm like, oh man, I'm recognizing some things. So, but to see this story, and then Brad, you're going to share in a moment what happened. Like, it's so cool how he worked on you, Lisa, and then without you even knowing, spoke to Brad and led you.
Yeah.
So, I love it.
Yep. Yeah. When I was living this other life, and again, pushing anyone out that wanted to speak anything opposite of what I was doing. Right. So I didn't really talk to my parents during this time. I didn't, I talked to Lisa just enough, if we went, saw the kids somewhere or something like that, but I was just pushing everybody out. Didn't want, again, anyone to tell me, didn't want to get preached at, basically. Right. That's basically what was happening. Right?
So much shame. Hey.
Yeah. And I was definitely running from God. I didn't want anything to do with any of that. And so I was driving back and forth, doing these weekend, whatever. Right. And just going and living it up, quote unquote. Right. And I was coming back one night after, or day after a weekend, and I was driving back to where I was living at the time, and listening to secular music, which I know there's nothing 100% wrong with secular music, but I was listening to whatever I wanted, thinking about whatever I wanted. Like, again, no thoughts were going through my head as far as, Jesus, God, like this whole, nothing like that was going through my head. And then I felt, God, I call it my road to Damascus experience, right? I didn't go blind. There was nothing like that, but it was this moment of intense presence. And it was undeniably him, right? I was running from him. And then there's this moment of just this intense presence right there, right? And I didn't audibly hear anything. How crazy would that have been, though? Yeah. I didn't audibly hear anything, but it was the loudest thing, though. It was just put on me, and I pulled over the side of the road, and it was this, he was just saying, like, here's your fork in the road, right? You can keep living the life you're living, or you can come back to me. And there was no promise of a marriage or promise of, 2026, here we are, podcast, a few years in this ministry and all these opportunities and helping other marriages, other men, other women, whatever. There was nothing like that. It was literally just, you can continue down the way you're going, or you can turn back to me. I'm right here. And I broke down and cried. Of course I'm like sobbing. I don't, I kind of think of that song, like I Can Only Imagine, when you see Jesus, like, what are you going to do? And that was this full presence of, I'm just kind of crumpled mess. Like, I was running from you. You're the furthest thing in my mind. Like, I didn't want anything to do with you. And here you are, pulling me over on the side of the road and working in my life. And I did feel this finality of, even though it's, God's a God of second chances, right? Like, we know this, but I felt this finality of what was about to happen. Not that I was going to lose my marriage, just that almost like this was my last chance. Even though I don't feel, this is just something I felt in the moment, like almost like death was imminent if I went down this path, which we all know that path leads to destruction and death and all that. But there on the side of the road, clearly I come back to him and I just ask him to forgive me. And the only thing I knew to do, I wasn't going to call my parents. I love them, but I didn't want to, like, the first person that popped in my head was Lisa. And then also, like, almost like this first right step to take was, can we salvage this? Can this be done? Is it even a possibility? So I called Lisa and I just asked her, like, is there any way we can work this out? I don't even know if I explained to you what happened in the moment, but I just was like, is there any way we can work this out? And, I'd love to say, like, I got home that day and like walked in and we were like, yeah, this is amazing. Everything's great. No, it just began the long road of reconciliation. It really did. And also of my detox, because yes, he forgave me on the side of that road, but man, I was carrying so much and addiction and just all the stuff you deal with, right? that you've helped so many people with. I was carrying all that and into this broken marriage, into this restoration, and also like learning her again. It was, we tell people all the time, like, you don't want the marriage you had, right? This is a new thing. Like, God's in it now. Everything's going to turn around, but there's a lot of work you got to put into it, but you don't want that same marriage you had. And so you have to do things different. And again, that started this long road, and there was bumps along the way. There was definitely, a lot of mistakes that were made, on my part for sure. But it was just this, by the grace of God, really. And that ultimately changed my whole life. Even as we were reconciling, it became clear that, at some point during it, I was like, my priority has to be my relationship with Jesus. Like, that's it. There wasn't priorities. It wasn't plural. There wasn't these other facets it was just simply, if I continue to put him first and run to him, right? Seek the kingdom first. If I keep doing this, what I started seeing was that everything else started to fall in place. That I loved my wife like he wanted me to love my wife. That I was the husband and the father I needed to be, like that he put me on this earth to be, that I was the employee that he put me on this earth to be. Like every aspect of my life started to change just because, you know, it's not flippant, but just because I put him first.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just popping in here mid-episode to say I hope you're loving this content. And if you have a desire for healthy sexuality in your own life, like this video and subscribe to the channel to keep this content flowing. Now let's get back to it. Yeah. Reminds me of 1 Thessalonians 4, verse 3 to 5, 3 to 6. It's like, be sanctified. It's God's will you be sanctified. And then abstain from sexual immorality. And it's like, wait, what? Like there's such a close connection, right? Be sanctified, become like Christ, and avoid this stuff. And so it's just cool how you went through that process. And I like how you're like, it changed my entire life. And that's what it can do. It's not like we just get rid of a behavior and everything else stays the same. It's like it changes our whole life.
Transformation.
It really is. It's amazing. I'm curious about that process and what it took for both of you to have Brad. I don't know how it looks for you guys, but like for Brad to lead or be ahead or take, like, just have the position of a biblical husband, and Lisa, for you to have the position of a biblical wife. Like, what did that look like? Because a lot of men, when they go through this, or women, if they're the ones that have committed the sin, it's like, I'm not worthy, right? Like, I can't come back. I can't lead. I'm the one who's done this. But then the one who has been betrayed is like, yeah, you're not, right? You're not worthy, and they want to take control. So anyways, what did that look like for you guys to have a biblical picture of marriage after the affair?
Yeah.
I think the reality is someone who's been betrayed, man or woman, right? Like your desire for safety is just so strong, right? And you want to feel safe emotionally, physically, spiritually in your marriage. And it should inherently be that place, right? And when you find out that that's not the case anymore, it typically manifests as control, right? It typically comes out as like, okay, well, you left this position in this marriage, and now you have to earn it back. I had to really recognize that there was nothing that could actually earn that back. And that's tough, right? Because if you really start getting into with someone and you start navigating through what healing looks like, and when someone wants to repeatedly, right, like bring you back into the ditch, right? Like, I want to remind you what it is that you did, right? That means you don't earn this position. Yeah. And it's true, right? Like, you have this thing you can pull out all the time and say, remember this, right? Yeah. You don't earn this position. And it's like the card that trumps all things. You know, it's like you could pull that out at any point, and it really becomes this reality of knowing, like, well, there isn't a price to be paid for that thing that just makes it okay, right? There's not a price that just says like, and now you can have this position back in the family, right? It's really that surrender again. You know, because you have to start recognizing that in reality, who you serve is Christ, right? And your responsibility for who you are and how you respond is to Christ. And so my surrender became much simpler when Brad said, my priority became Christ. Right? Because all of a sudden, this immense pressure that I had on myself of responsibility for good and or bad behavior, right? Because that's what we do, right? It's like almost this element of saying like, okay, well, the stressors can't be too much, or I got to remind you over here, or, you know, we have these certain things that have to be in place. And it just, this pressure of either him failing or actually succeeding, it somehow becomes me. And that's never where it's meant to be, but that's technically what we try to grasp at, right? Yeah. And so when I saw him doing that, it was like this pressure valve of release where it was like, oh man, he answers to God, like not to me. And I could just release that. Now there was such an element of being able to see him like, okay, the more that he was going after God, it really became this natural thing of submission became something I wanted to do when there was a man who was under that, right? Because that was exactly how God has designed it to be, right? I could come alongside as helper at submitting to someone who ultimately was being a better man because that's who God called him to be, not because I called him to be that. And that's the really difficult aspect of making sure that we don't take the position Jesus is meant to fill, because that is the temptation. I think in recovery is like, somehow I wanted to be enough for him to not do the things. And it was the space that Jesus is meant to fill. So it wasn't pretty for me to discover that. It wasn't easy, and made a lot of mistakes, I jumped into a lot of positions that I was never intended to take for little seasons or small time or for longer. But I think when I saw him, like I said, it's just him going after Jesus that made that so much simpler.
Yeah. It's a process, right? It's like Brad, you said,
Yes.
it's like it's a new marriage. You're not going back to the old. It's a whole new marriage. How do you navigate this? And you two are both now new people.
Yeah.
You get to know the new version of yourselves and of your spouse, and it's a whole process. Yeah. What about you, Brad? What'd that look like?
To step into that leadership role that God has for you as a God-fearing couple, man, disciple of Jesus. It's hard. It was really hard because I held on to shame for years. I mean, it wasn't till probably a few years ago, just a couple years ago, that I had this moment of letting all that go, because it was like, I don't have to be reminded, earlier, like Lisa's like, here's the card, I don't have to be reminded. It's in my face, right? I missed months of my kids' lives during a time where they were growing so fast. They grow so fast anyway, but when they're little, and it's just like these leaps and bounds, right? And I missed that time, and I can never get it back, and so it was always in my face that, there was these times like our youngest was just a baby. And there's these times that I don't know. I don't have those memories or anything. So those were really weighing on me as I was stepping into this leadership position that God has for me, for our family. And so I was already stepping into it, but that was a constant thing that held me back from, I think, really owning what he's given us, right? Like really doing what he wants us to do. And I was having my like devotion time with Jesus one time, and I was praying about this, or I wasn't even praying about that. I was just praying. And it came up that I see scars, right, that I've left on, my 3 kids, right? And I've left on Lisa. And I had this, God's like, no, you're looking at it wrong, right? You're saying that you made those scars, that you cut them, that you did these things. But in all actuality, those scars are reminders of what he did, right? They're reminders of this restoration and this full on into him, right? It was a full on reminder. And so it was this moment in my prayer time that was hard to swallow, and it was like taking the eyes off of me, right? Like that's what it's always about. But God was like, you're not looking at it right. Look what I did. Like that's what those things remind you of. When you see those things, you're reminded of his sovereignty and his grace and his mercy and this, all these changes that were made. But as far as like modeling and like what to do and how to be this leader, it really, and this is going to sound so simplistic, right? But in reality, I literally looked at who's the best leader in the world, right? That ever walked the face of the earth. And Jesus was a servant leader. And so that's what all of this is about. It's not about I'm the dictator of our household, right? I'm I come home, open the door, and now it's like, all right, let's get back to work. Like everyone start doing this, and this is how I lead my family. No, it's just literally servant leadership. In the secular world, in my job, the best leaders I've ever been around, the ones that I would like run into anything with were servant leaders. And they're not even Christian necessarily, right? But it's this aspect that this is what Jesus wants you to do. And so for me, stepping in this leadership role is just truly a servanthood. And it's just, I don't know how else to explain it. It's literally like, I'm going to serve my family, and that's how it's going to be led. And that's not, rolling over or not doing things. It's literally like, I am going to serve my family, however that looks. If that looks like I'm going to do without whatever, then I'm going to do without whatever. It's not a big deal because this is what Jesus has called me to do.
I love it. It actually sounds easier than having to be the boss and the dictator and have all the answers.
Absolutely.
And when you feel so inadequate and inferior because of sin, but then come in and think now you need to have all the answers for your family, that's a real hard ask. But when it's like, just come in and serve, lead with servant, that's pretty cool. That's something that can change a lot of men's lives and marriages, because a lot of the guys that we've dealt with, it's like they feel so like they can't pray, they can't lead a Bible study for their family, they can't lead their kids to church because of what they've done. But it's like, man, this one sin just has such a hold on us, even when we're in freedom, because of the shame. But I love that picture. The scars are representations of what he did, not of what you did.
Absolutely. I mean, they're there, right? And that's what I think that all these men need to hear, or women, right? You can't, they're there and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just like a scar on your body. It's there and it's not going away. We can't erase the past, right? We can just lean in him for the new future that he has for us. And so with that, it was literally, it was freeing. It really was. It was like, okay, this is a reminder of what you did for us, for them. Like he protected them so much during this time. Our kids were little. They kind of remember little bits and pieces, but really the two boys, the younger ones, like we had to sit them down and talk to them about what happened, and it was something much later that happened. But so in that, there was a lot of protection with that for sure.
Just thinking of the different triggers that you guys would have, like on both sides, because that's sometimes when we don't handle the triggers well, that hinders us from having the marriage that God wants us to have. And that can last for years, right? Like decades, even if we let it.
Yeah.
But the triggers might come, such as you're looking at a picture of your babies and you weren't there. But man, what if, like, one of the foundational principles I love that we use in our ministry is that Jesus is an eternal optimist. And it's like, what if you look at that? Yeah, I love it too. What if we look at that picture where you weren't there, but it's like, man, that's a picture of what could have been forever. You could have not been there forever, but yet here you are, and you've had all these pictures with your kids as they grew up. Perspective's everything.
Is so huge. Yeah. I mean, because we chose from very early on to celebrate the miracle we were in. And it didn't mean it wasn't messy and painful.
We didn't ignore it.
No,
we didn't ignore
but it's just like, God is doing a miracle. And we would tell our kids that, even as they were growing up, like, our family is a miracle. Our family is a miracle. And unequivocally, we know that to be true, that God did things only he can do. And, I just encourage someone, specifically men who feel inadequate to lead. I would just tell you, I've never worked with a woman, or even myself, that what you consider to be a feeble attempt at spiritual leadership is such a lifeline for a woman who is trying to heal. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, Brad could do a, 15-second prayer, God be with her today, and bye, right? And that was still, to me, it was such a beautiful thing. Like, I've never seen a woman who does not long for her husband to spiritually lead their home. That doesn't mean she just knows how to hand the reins over, right? And so there can be just this awkwardness that you almost have to embrace. What we have found is the best thing that you can do for your kids is to have authentic faith and a good marriage. And so it's that authenticity that really truly bleeds through to your kids for them to know, right? Like, they're going to have times that they screw up, or that things are not perfect, or they hit a wall, and they need to know that they serve a God who can absolutely unequivocally redeem that. And your marriage can be an example of that, right? Like, our kids know our marriage is an example of a God who is literally entrusted us with the ministry of reconciliation. Like, that's his business. God is a God of reconciliation, and our marriage represents what that looks like here on earth. And it's allowed us to have conversations with our kids and walk out some forgiveness and walk out some pointing to hope in situations we never even wanted our kids to be in, right? But they know authentically who God is, right, in their lives. And they've chosen that for themselves because they've gotten to see us also. It's authentic, right? Who you see here is who we are.
Yeah.
Brokenness has been definitely displayed in our home.
Yeah.
And so has forgiveness and redemption. And
That's
I've
so
just
cool.
encouraged somebody in that.
Isn't that like the biblical narrative though? Like all the saints, all the sin that's exposed and highlighted, and it's like, man, God didn't need to put that in.
Right.
He chose to. He chose to, and he's like detailed with it.
Yeah.
And but it's because it's all about his grace, and it's an illustration of his mercy and his
Absolutely.
love as you're talking about your marriage. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What is like when you're working with couples, what is one thing that like really breaks your heart that they struggle to grasp?
You have something in your mind?
You're like, I just want you to get this so badly. What is one thing that
I think what people really struggle with in the middle of betrayal of some kind, right? Some level of trust that's been broken, is you just feel like this is forever.
yeah.
Like this is what it's going to be like forever, right? On both sides.
Yeah.
For the person who's betrayed in some level, it's like, this is who I am, right? And there's like no distinction in who I am and what I've done, right? It's just like, this is who I am.
Right.
And on the side of someone who's been betrayed, there's also that same echo of that lie of like, that is who he is or she is, right? And this is who we are going to be forever. And so there's just like that glimmer of hope that we so want couples to see, that you actually can come out the other side better than you were before, right? And that's so hard for people to see in the middle of great pain and great shame. But man, we've gotten to see it over and over and over again, and we've lived it, right? Is that we can look back now. This happened in 2011, right? And we can look back now and we get to see how God weaved a story we could never imagine. And there's even a level of gratefulness for the story. Yeah. And that's like a really weird thing to say. But we often tell couples that when they fight for a marriage like this, they get a really unique view on what it looks like to fight for marriage and what marriage means. I hate that people have to experience those things to get it, but so many people float through their marriages and life, and they never value it the way someone who's had to fight for it will. And it's a gift. It's a painful gift, but it can be looked at as a gift. They have a unique viewpoint of what it looks like to fight and to overcome and to heal. And yeah, it's God's business.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I love that you went there, that people feel like it's going to be forever, but you can be better than ever. And just last week I was interviewing one of our coaches, and he was talking about same-sex attraction. And he's like, I'm actually thankful for it because it led me to learn who God is as a father. And I remember a guy who was exposed as a pastor going out with prostitutes in his marriage. And he says, 20 years later, my wife says she's thankful for it because of what it established. I mean, scripture talking about be thankful in every circumstance, like that's a hard ask.
Yes.
But when you can see his grace and his presence so thick in the turmoil, it's such a cool place to get to. So yeah, I hope people can grasp that even if you don't feel it and experience it, there can come a day where you can be thankful for everything that the Lord does through this. So Brad, can you talk about unrelenting pursuit? Why those words? Unrelenting pursuit is the name of your ministry, but why did you guys go with those words? I've never asked you this, so I'm curious.
Yeah, you haven't. I was trying to figure out a name, right? Like just something. And, it didn't just come to me, right? It was God put it in my heart. But I think it's so needed, right? So it handles all facets of all areas of your life. Right? It's not just marriage. Mm-hmm. So I must have an unrelenting pursuit towards Christ, towards my wife, towards my family, towards mental resilience, towards spiritual resilience, towards physical resilience, like every aspect that you can ask or see if you just take a moment and look around your life. There has to be this unrelenting pursuit. And it is a pursuit that doesn't end, not on this side of heaven, right? Like it's something that's going to be constantly there. And so we love the name, just because it's just this reminder of whatever you're dealing with, one, we always point back to Jesus. But in all these aspects, if you are a follower of Christ, you need to be unrelenting in your pursuit in everything that he's given you, right? Like I'm not going to be, I don't want to look back a year from now and go, oh, wow, I'm the same exact person. Like, I don't want that. And not because I'm not content with where I'm at now, but because I know what God can do in my life. I know what he can do in my life in a month. And if I'm not pursuing him like that, then I'm at a loss, right? And I can't fully be where he wants me to be while I'm on this earth. The same thing with my family, right? My wife, I don't want to look back and go, oh, we're the same couple, or, oh, I know you the exact same way I did a year ago. No, I'm going to learn so much from her in a year. And I have to have that. I must do that. Like, that is part of all of this. It's just this constant pursuit of him, my relationship with him, this constant pursuit of Lisa. Like, I don't want to stop. That's where a lot of couples do start failing, right? We've been married, 20?
Almost 25 years.
Almost 20. It'll be 25 years this year.
Cool.
Right. And you would say like, oh, well, you know everything about your wife. Well, not if
I'm a mystery.
She is a mystery. But I want to continue to learn from her, and I want to continue to learn about her. And so I have to pursue our marriage just like I was pursuing her when we were dating. Right. So once the ring goes on, that's just the beginning of this life you can have together of pursuing each other and different phases of your life, that you have. And so many things change. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. Absolutely. Thank you, Jesus, that I'm not the same person I was a year ago.
I know, I heard that too. I got it, Brad.
He's been a rock this last year, you guys.
No, that's where the name comes from. And it's just, I think at the beginning, it was just literally this pursuit of just our marriage, right? But then as the name, started this ministry and started moving, it started becoming very apparent that this was the total pursuit of Jesus, the total pursuit of our family, of every aspect.
I love it. That's a beautiful picture. Where can people find you? If they want to get some resources or some personal help, personal coaching, do a reboot, where can people find you?
About everything is just on unrelentingpursuit.org. We're probably most active on Instagram. We're starting to get back into that realm a little bit. We took a long pause over there. But you can also email us at info@unrelentingpursuit.org. We try to answer those personally, everyone. Eventually, you may have to wait a little bit, but we will get back to it. That's probably the best place though, is to go to our website.
Amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. I love everything you post. I love the Instagram that you got. And it makes sense if you're not replying right away because you've got a grandbaby. Even if you're not like with the grandbaby, you can always use that as an excuse, right?
Exactly.
So
right?
true.
So, I love it. Thanks guys for coming on. It's awesome sharing, hearing you guys share, and just learning more about you guys every time.
And just a side note, I just wanted to say personally thank you, because we have actually even for our own kids, have invested in your ministry, and you've worked alongside one of our kids as well. And it just, it's something that he shared. A lot of what you shared with him, he's been able to share. I mean, he is on the missions field now, and I just know that you gave him a really strong voice to be able to just instantly speak to young men. And I just think it's just such a beautiful full circle moment. I think just to get a chance that our ministries in so many ways coincide, but we've gotten to see the fruits of your labor as well, just in our own family. And we're just super grateful.
That's amazing, man. Every once in a while you run across people that just kind of blow your mind, and he is so much more mature than what his age would indicate, right? I mean, it's been a couple years now, but I was like, man, this kid, I love talking to him. I love just being with him and hearing the way that he would process and seek the Lord. Yeah, that was an honor. That was really cool thing I got to do and meet with him. The fruit of your labor too, and the fruit of the Lord's work in your marriage, which is really cool. Amen. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. Listeners, go check them out, Unrelenting Pursuit.
Thank you.
There's a lot there. If you want to learn how Jesus-centered sexuality can transform your life like it has for so many people, remember to hit that subscribe button. And if you want help with porn or betrayal in your own life, look at the description below for options for your support.